Of course, everybody may be wrong. We all think the gold rush will start with Apple's introduction of their product. And there's a lot of indication that wherever they pick as a display will become maybe the trend towards that display.
Welcome to Seeking Alpha's CEO interviews, informed conversations with the best and brightest CEOs in the publicly traded markets. Quality of leadership is a decisive factor in stock performance. Our show provides intimate and in-depth investing discussions with industry leaders across all sectors of the marketplace. We publish excerpts on social media platforms and the full conversations on seekingalpha.com or on our highly rated Seeking Alpha mobile app under CEO interviews.
Welcome to Seeking Alpha. I'm your host, Jesse Redmond. Today, I'm joined by Dr. John Fan, CEO of Kopin Corporation. John, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you for having me.
So, John, when I think of microdisplays and the metaverse, I'm used to seeing new companies that are trying to capitalize on a trend. But in a way, you're the opposite of that. In fact, Kopin's been in existence since 1984 and NASDAQ listed since 1992. Can you share a little bit about the history of the business and your involvement in the space?
Yes, that's a very good question. The Kopin actually, is, like you say, is already over 30 years. We actually spun off from MIT. At that time, I was running an MIT group in, actually nowadays we call it nanotechnology. We develop new materials, electronic materials, to satisfy new electronics, advanced electronics. And that we spun in 1994 because venture groups asked us to leave. Say, oh, your technology is so revolutionary, so can leave the company, leave the MIT and start the company. So we actually focus in 3 different cycles. The first cycle we actually focus on space, Star Wars. Then we focus on cell phones. Actually, we make transistors for cell phones. But 5 years ago, I sold the cell phone business. We actually, at that time, still leading in the area, and we'll go on the wearable for consumer and for enterprise. Actually, we've been working on wearable for 30 years, ever since DARPA asked us to do wearable computer for mobile soldiers, hands-free soldiers. That's why we developed display and optics for wearable soldiers. And that we have been doing that for over 20 years. Currently, for instance, like the F-35, or the pilots at the most advanced AR helmet in the world, and our displays in there, and we're the sole source to them. Or the gun sights, our displays in there. Helicopter helmets, our displays in there. Now, enterprise was like RealWear, which use our stuff for our display and optics for all the AR helmets that they have. So yeah, we are very much now in display and optics and the system for providing images to people. Yeah.
And way back in 1984, or even when you got NASDAQ listed in 1992, did you think we would end up someplace like this with personal wearable things? For example, did you think my 12-year-old son would be punching air wearing an Oculus headset every night?
Yes, the truth is yes. The truth also is we're disappointed it took so long.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually, if you go away all the way back in 1991, DARPA came around and asked us, since we have MIT origins, so they always ask a few of these experts and went to the DARPA in the Pentagon. They say, how the hell we're going to get wearable computer hands-free to our soldiers? 1991, okay. And we proposed a way to make display, a micro display on silicon wafers. And they love it so much. They say, okay, we'll give you $50 million, 10 million a year for 5 years to develop display for them, for wearable soldiers. 2 years later, it actually was working. So IBM immediately wants to use our display to make a wearable portable computer. In fact, you can see these things everywhere at that time. We were so well known. And that was 1993, I think, time frame. Guess it's right now, 30 years later, the thing's really just coming about. Like all technologies, it takes double, triple the time, triple the money. Yeah. The currently, I think the technology for AR still needs a few more years, but VR maybe next year. VR will be really a good one for coming out.
Yeah, it's nice that you're mentioning the AR and the VR. For people that aren't as familiar with the space, can you kind of walk us through the difference between the augmented reality, the virtual reality, and even the mixed reality experiences?
Yes, very good question. See, we consider the whole metaverse or the whole AR, VR is a continuum. So on one side is a physical universe. The other side is a digital virtual universe. So it's really a mixture of physical, which is analog. Our physical world is analog. Digital virtual one is all pure digital. Now you have the continuum. If you mix a little bit of the virtual, you have AR. You mix all the virtual, you have VR. And in between is MR. So it's really a continuum of a mixture of the virtual world and the physical world.
And do you see one of those areas as being the biggest opportunity set, or are they all kind of linked together in a way and you think that they'll grow together?
That's a very, very good question. Let's put it that way. Ever since I was young, I always would like to have a personal fantasy world, so to speak. If it's a true fantasy world, like going to Alice in Wonderland, then you want a VR. You just go to a different universe, okay? In fact, I think you want to be a different universe, different world. See, even when you was young, when you're reading a book, you actually put yourself into a different universe anyway. So to me, I think the fantasy world is always there, it's a human nature. And it's more entertainment, more dream world. And I actually like this more. And it's also technology-wise, in fact, it's easy to do. Your human brain can do that. Your human brain can identify, I'm in a dream world, I'm in a physical world. Augmented reality is much harder. Now, are you in the physical world? Are you in the digital world? And the cognitive brain load is very strong. So now I think it's very, very important for people to understand. If you want to augment yourself, just for instance, when you're driving a car, you do have a screen next to you, a digital screen, but you only look at it when you want to look at it. It's not right in front of your eyes. So to me, the augmented world needs a lot of study because our brain may not be able to take it very easily.
And how much of your business is coming from these, what I'll call newer, more retail-oriented, maybe even gaming-oriented VR type headsets, versus I know you also have a big military business as well. Can you talk about kind of the revenue breakdown and how you see those two businesses evolving?
Yes, it is right now, as you well know, we have been growing for consecutive years now because government, especially in the defense world, the wearable become more and more prevalent. So the new type of soldier, pilots, they want to be augmented or maybe even virtual world. For instance, our revenue now in the military one has been growing 4 years in a row actually, and represent about 60–70% of our total revenue. Some of them are mostly our products, and some of them are actually funded by them to develop the next generation of displays or optics. Our enterprise world now represent maybe 20%. Our consumer world maybe less than 10%. Mm-hmm. Now, why is that? That's really normal when new technology come to be used, especially very, very radical technology. Usually start with the military world, defense world, then go to enterprise, then finally go to consumer. The volumes are different, but the revenue per unit are different too. The defense will pay a lot more per unit. Look at the internet. It started with DARPANET, right? Then you go to enterprise. Now, of course, consumer have it. It's the same trend. The journey is the same. We're seeing the journey now. In the defense world, it's growing very well. We're growing 4 consecutive years, and we'll grow again this year, I think. And enterprise starting, and I think consumer world maybe 1 or 2 years away, and you'll see start growing very rapidly.
And how are the margins on the military contracts? Are they bigger and lower margin, bigger contracts at lower margins generally, or how would you characterize that business?
It's a very good question. It all depends on where you're, as it will know, where your sole source, how difficult it is to make it. In the case of F-35, we're sole source, and the display is so difficult to make, so rugged. In fact, the F-35 is a good helmet. So think about it. Is the most advanced helmet, AR helmet in the world. It costs about $400,000 per helmet. Okay, 400,000. Okay, it's not something for you, for most of us, but it sees around 360 degrees. Okay, because there's sensors all around. So it's essentially it's AR, but it's not AR. It's a virtual AR. The camera sees everything. So in the nighttime, you can fly. Your daytime, you can fly. You can see up and down through the plane, 360 degrees. Okay, so that also, I would say, in fact, it has all the sound or all the audio that's needed for them. Okay, and in the case of a helicopter helmet, it's getting there, but it's much cheaper. It's helicopters are only a few $1,000s each. It's much simpler. It's not as rugged and less sensors. In the case of RealWear, it's actually a monitor next to you. So you look at it just like you're driving a car. You see the monitor, and then if you don't want to look at it, you go ahead and look at the physical world. So the displays are all different. The optics are different. And we are very good in those optics and displays as application specific.
And given you get such a significant amount of your revenue from the military, I've seen concerns about how your business might do if we slash defense spending. Do you feel A, you're at risk of or would suffer from the defense spending cuts, and B, not to make positives out of negative things, but do you feel like these global tensions might give a little more security to that business?
Yeah, I think just as your questions, of course, is a very appropriate, especially in this new world. In the last 4 or 5 years, we did not see defense spending being cut at all. In fact, if anything, it's growing. Second is the soldiers are, everybody want to make the soldiers more productive, okay? Because we're professional soldiers. So we are allowing the soldiers to be more productive. So that trend, no matter where the defense budget go down, up, people want the soldiers to be more productive. But in addition to that, the geopolitical situation today is not just the US alone, it's international now. Everybody now, I hate to say it because it's really not the things we would like to see, but I think the whole world, everybody wants to have more weapons to defend themselves.
And looking more towards what I'll call the retail side, for lack of a better term, there's been a lot of excitement and rumors around Apple potentially releasing a VR headset, or the pictures I've seen even look maybe more like goggles or wraparound glasses in a way. And there's rumors that may take place, at WWDC over the summer, or perhaps even in advance of WWDC. What do you expect that they'll do differently than the failed Google experiment? And do you see any upside from your business with this Apple release?
Jesse, of course, maybe a lot of people don't know about it. We are actually the provider of displays to Google Glass 1 and 2, both. Okay, and both of the thing, the glasses, I think we can summarize is less than successful. Mm-hmm. We're not. Everybody was sufficiently disappointed. I think with the case of Apple, now, of course, Apple is a very secretive company, especially a product like that. My feeling is it is still in some way, it's like the F-35 helmet. But in that case, it's smaller. It may be more like a ski goggle type and it's also, it's AR, but it's not true optical AR, it's a video AR. They'll be using their cameras. If you look at the Apple's iPhone, they have a lot of AI functions in there, but it's all using camera. are using camera. Cameras are very powerful, very low cost, consumer oriented now. So there's a lot of things can be done with camera instead of optical. So my own feeling is mostly based on camera AR. And then if you turn off the camera, you get an MR, you get a VR. And it's entertainment for gaming, which is very wonderful for it. Now, do you have any optical system? I think they may have a slight optical see-through area that's maybe just for information snacking. So mostly, I would say video AR and VR. And I'm actually speculating in that display. I think display will be mostly oriented towards micro OLED display, micro organic LED display. So I think it may come out by the end of this year.
Do you see that as something that might be just kind of a catalyst for the broader industry and lead to more adoption? Because as the father of two teenagers that are really into gaming, I can, they have the Oculus headset, but they're also aware of its limitations, and they're bigger on the Apple platform, and I think would like more integration. And when I sent the picture I saw online to my 12-year-old son, he was super enthusiastic and already added it to his Christmas list, even though it doesn't exist. So I'm just curious, even if you don't have the Apple contract, do you see that as maybe a catalyst to kind of bring more attention, more games, more people into that AR, VR, MR world, which might be overall a good thing for Kopin?
Oh, yes. Of course, everybody may be wrong. We all think the gold rush will start with Apple's introduction of their product. And there's a lot of indication that wherever they pick as a display will become maybe the trend towards that display. There are quite a lot of display technology, as you will know. It all the way started with LCD, LCOS, micro OLED, or now it's micro LEDs. Kopin actually in all four of them, okay? But we're guessing which way they will use for their first product. In the Google case, glass is LCD. We will provide LCD to them. In the case of F35 LCD, but we do believe this time around is going to be micro OLED. Now, if they come out with micro OLED, there's a gold rush towards that for VR assets. So it'll be very important. We're betting on is micro OLED. So our push right now is micro OLED. Optics, nobody really knows, but I think they probably use the optics like we're talking about, pancake optics, make it very thin. You see, the Oculus, my grandson, I'm much older than you are, so my grandson's wearing the micro Oculus. And after a while, they will stop using it because it's too heavy, too bulky. And so with the pancake optics, it can make it about 1/3 the thickness and maybe half the weight, maybe even 1/3 the weight. So this is the thing that people want to go there, yeah.
And that's actually a great transition into talking a little bit about the pancake optics, because you have an all-new plastic pancake optic that sounds like an excellent fit for exactly these types of things, people wanting thin and light headsets. Can you walk us through this new offering and where you kind of see it fitting in the marketplace?
Yes, I think in the case of Oculus, for instance, Oculus using a very large display, we think it's a few, maybe 5-inch diagonal display with an optics called Fresnel lens. It's all plastic, okay, but it's a very large piece of plastic. The idea is to magnification. Our feelings, the display should be smaller than 5-inch. We are working on a display like a 1.3-inch. Now that means you have to magnify it very bigger in order to get a huge screen. So you ought to magnify usually what we call optical path. So the optics become thicker and thicker to allow you to go the path. And the pancake optics is like an accordion. They kind of collapse it, make the optics, the light keep on bouncing inside. So basically like an accordion, you collapse the distance. So you can make it about thinner to 1/3 the size. So that's what the pancake. Now we actually use pancakes in the defense industry in our products for quite a while, maybe over a decade now, but it usually has glass in there. We think that it should be plastic, make it lighter, scalable, cheaper. So we're the only one now can do the plastic. Why is that? Because this plastic material does not make a pancake well, does not make mechanical optics well until now we have a new material, new processing. Now it works well. So we're currently the only one in the world now can do the all plastic pancake optics.
And if you were to look out 3 to 5 years on the consumer level, how do you see people using VR differently than they are today? And I guess I'd ask the question in 2 parts. How do you see us using it differently? And how much wider do you see adoption being? For example, right now, it's not real common for people in my generation, the dads of the world, unless they're borrowing their kids' headsets. That's not a big part of most people's lives, unless they're dedicated gamers. But with the Apple release and other things coming out that might be smaller, lighter, better, I would see maybe broader adoption. So I'm curious your perspective on the adoption rate changing over the next 3 to 5 years, and also the applications, how we're using them, how you see that evolving.
Yeah, this is a good place I'm gonna discuss about branch that a lot of people, a lot of readers or audience are not aware of. In the metaverse world, as you well know, human has many senses, about 5 senses. 2 senses are very important, sound and sight. Okay, I noticed you're wearing, I think it's an Apple AirPod, right, on one side. That is sound. The sound actually give you a metaverse also. If you have a headset, immersive headset like Beats, so you actually get augmented sound, maybe immersive sound. In the case of Beats headsets, immersive sound. Okay, yours is kind of augmented sound. So this is the area. In fact, a lot of people don't quite understand that metaverse. It has been around for quite a few years. The total revenue could be as high as close to over 50 billion a year. The airport alone, Apple airport revenue per year is over 20 billion. So that area is consumers are accustomed to it now. Now the question is, what's the next step? Our feeling is that sound metaverse, we're going to the eyeglasses. Now, why do you need eyeglasses? Because once that's solved, they can put the screen, a display in there. You can combine the sound and sight. Right now, airport is not like that. Airport cannot combine the sight in there. So another class of a product will come out is there'll be sound glasses. Ray-Ban tried to do that with Facebook. The new Ray. It's basically the same move in order to move in the sound and sight, combine them together. That market, I think, could easily be 50, 60 billion, and it will be very consumer-friendly pricing. In fact, Kopin has a spun-out company called Solos doing that, and the product are already in the market now. It's exactly sound glass. Okay. Now, how do you combine display in there? That's the key. I think the next display will be a full immersive VR glass for gaming. Exactly. I look at my kids. They play the Oculus mostly for games, and then maybe 30% of them are watching movies like an IMAX theater. So you see that the two function that people as consumers accepting is gaming and large screen TV. Okay.
So do you see in the regard to the large screen TV idea, do you see 2 people sitting on the couch together watching a movie, both wearing glasses instead of looking at the television?
That is a good question. In the interview I had 6 months ago, I was talking about experience I had in Shanghai 3 years ago, just before the pandemic. And they were building a test theater. So each one has a seat, and I sat there and they put an eyeglass in. It's an IMAX theater glass. And then of course I see a big screen, but in also I see virtual people sitting next to me. So it's like a theater, but you have virtual friends or your buddies, so you have a very virtual experience. Now, is that normally what happened? I think with the pandemic, I immediately can recognize it. I can have social distance, but I do have friends. Now, at that time, the friends don't talk to me because but I think pretty soon people can even talk to you. They will, each one wear a headset, and then they're going to the theater together without having to drive to the theater.
Yeah.
So in some way, I'm describing like people playing games right now. The Oculus, people play games against each other, but they might be 1,000 miles away. So why can't you have experience of a big screen TV like IMAX with people 1,000 miles away?
Yeah. Yeah.
So together, but not together. It's a different world. I know. So I guess just I don't think you can take in that scenario.
No, I do understand where you're coming from. I'm aware of people that get together at a virtual bar and they're all wearing, I don't know if it's Oculus headsets or what they wear, and they meet up at a virtual bar and all have a beer together and chat wearing these headsets, but they're all located in different states around the US. So I do see people that are on the early adoption side starting to do that.
Interesting point. I mean, you obviously have also have children. We found the children do not really watch TV with you. They actually have their TV in their own room. They don't even watch TV with their sibling.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very interesting. Now, when do you watch things together? Sports events. But normally they all, because of the cable, because of all the streaming, there's so many different channels. So everybody have that individual wish. So they no longer watch together like when we were young. Mm-hmm. So your scenario is in fact, I think less so, but you may watch a certain type of movies together with friends virtually. So everybody has the same interest, they watch it together, but they're not necessarily the same physical space.
Yeah, and it seems like there's no doubt that COVID accelerated these trends, right? Whether it be just doing things with more technology, whether it be meeting up with more virtually, it just seems like COVID is probably, I don't want to say COVID is a good thing in any way, but it seems like for your business and expediting some of these trends, do you feel that COVID did kind of shift that curve forward?
Yeah, especially younger people, they're used to it now.
Yeah,
I think that they're absolutely, I think that even going to office, people still would go to office, but the hybrid was definitely much simpler. I mean, look at it, you and I can communicate pretty well, and very well, in fact. And yet you are in Santa Barbara, I'm in Boston.
Yeah.
And so I think that trend will not reverse itself. I think people get used to it now.
Yeah, and in 5 years, if we were to chat again, and this hasn't been a wildly successful space and your business hasn't been a significant player in it, what do you think might have gone wrong? What do you think we could be missing from this equation?
Yeah, I think that in the case of a metaverse world, there's still a gap between the physical world and the digital world. The digital world that presented to you today, you can tell it is not the physical world. In order to make a good metaverse glass, you want to make these two kind of indistinguishable. And that means you need a very good display. Now, how good that display has to be? Well, we think they should be like an 8K TV, okay? So you have two eyes, so 4K on each side, a small little display and magnifying into a screen that looks like maybe 200-inch screen. Are we there? No. Are we close? It's certainly closer today than ever before. So how many years away? I think it's between maybe 3 years, 5 years to get into a consumer type pricing. You will see a world that when you put it on, you look like an IMAX theater on steroid, actually. It's 3D, it's a spatial sound, and it's equal sharper than an IMAX theater. And everybody will have a wonderful sound. So that may be 3 to 5 years, and it's very fast. It's like great for gaming. And I think you asked me 5, 6 years ago, I thought you'd be here today, but it looks like it's still about 3, 5 years away. And I think I'm going to watch how Apple is going to provide their first unit. Remember that the first unit will not be very consumer friendly. It will be around $2,000. Now,
Wow.
maybe you can afford for your kids, but not for my family. So, but then price will go down like all things are. It will begin to go down, volume goes up, and voila, in 3 years, a lot of family can afford it.
And my final question for you, John, is can you share what you're most excited about this year for the Kopin business?
Yeah, I think this year we have 3 different areas we're focusing. Of course, we try to keep growing our defense business, and our market is good. As we advise the street, we have very good booking right now, and our job is try to ship it so that we can get enough supplies to ship it. Second is I would like to get the sunglass out. I think a lot of people did not understand the sunglass could be a huge business. In fact, that business, I think, in fact, the other day I was giving a talk, I say, the eyeglass business is about 100 billion a year. The sound, like audio sound, like a headset, AirPod, and all the other hearing aids, together is over 50 billion a year. Altogether, you're addressing $150 billion business. You can all put onto eyeglasses. So this is a huge area, is underserved, and this is one area. The third one we want to do is we want to make a display, hopefully this year, certainly by next year, a 4K display at 1.3. Just imagine your 4K TV, which is a 70-inch TV. I will squeeze it down to a poster stand. Okay, that's our bigger goal. On all plastic optics, we already know how to make it. So we're trying to get into a product for people right now. It doesn't have to be used our display. Other guys can use it. And ideally, as you well know, we provide a transistor for cell phone. We invented a transistor, which we call HBT. Today, we invented about 15 years ago. Today, every phone still uses it. Your phone, our phone, all smartphone still use the transistor Kopin came out with. Okay, so I think we want to do the same thing. 5 years around, you look around, everybody using some of the components in their eyeglasses.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, John. I appreciate you joining us on Seeking Alpha, and best of luck moving forward.
Thank you very much, Jesse. Innovation. We're still in innovation. But once it comes out, I think it will become a household product.